The college football world had to be sleeping on this one. It was a classic yawner, 6-3 at halftime. But I was determined to file a recap after the game, so I have to admit, though, I did fall asleep with about 6 minutes left to play, but I had seen enough. And most importantly for you BYU fans, the Cougars woke up in time with 20 fourth quarter points in defeating San Diego State 23-6 in the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl tonight. MarkRogersTV just minutes after the ball game. This game belonged to Kyle Van Noy, number 3 linebacker extraordinaire for BYU. I had heard so many things about him the last few years playing for BYU and making big plays. He came into the game with 11.5 sacks, and he took the game into his own hands literally in the fourth quarter. Trailing 6-3, BYU had again stuffed San Diego State inside the 5-yard line, and he sacked the quarterback, forced the fumble, and recovered it for the touchdown that gave the Cougars their first lead. Then later in the game, he capped it all off with a 17-yard interception return all the way for a touchdown. So remember that name, Kyle Van Noy. He's a legitimate NFL prospect. He's a senior, and he will be drafted probably on day 1 out of BYU. Another big prospect, junior Ezekiel Anash. He forced a fumble. He had a pick as well. He's number 47. He's a junior who's going to decide whether he's going to test the draft waters. San Diego State actually dominated this game in the first half on defense and led it again 6-0 early in the second quarter. Could have broke open the game. They had an interception all the way for a touchdown against Riley Nelson, but got called back on a penalty, so not 13-0. So BYU weathered the storm and finally generated enough offense and got Van Noy to make those plays off the corner to win the football game in the fourth quarter. Interesting to note here was the BYU punting unit was exceptional. I don't know that I've seen anything like this. 6 punts down inside the 20, including one at the 1, the 2, and the 3, and that really turned the football game in the fourth quarter and set up the defense to make the big plays. And Jamaal Williams, the freshman running back for BYU, who leads them in rushing to finally break through with a 14-yard touchdown run as well. He was shut down by the Aztecs most of the night. 15 carries, 31 yards for Jamaal Williams. Interesting to note, as I did a little research right after the game, that quarterback James Lark for BYU, he's a senior, so this is it for him, and he's not an NFL prospect in any way. Interesting to note, in fact, he had thrown just about 20 career passes going into his last regular season game as a senior. Then he gets the start, throws 50 passes against New Mexico State, his last game in his career regular season, throws for 6 touchdowns. Then he gets the start in this game, goes 23 of 42, doesn't look sharp, doesn't look great, but he makes the throws and finally generates some offense in the fourth quarter, throws for 244. And so congratulations to a guy, James Lark, who's not going to see a paycheck in the NFL, but he caps off his college career with a win. Riley Nelson, the other quarterback, a senior who had started the last 2 years, threw a pick in this game. So BYU is going to have to come up with a quarterback next year. And also going to have to come up with a punter, unfortunately. We see that he's a senior. Another Riley Stevenson, a senior punter for BYU. We look ahead to the Cougars' schedule in 2013. Of course, BYU, not a WAC member anymore. They're an independent since 2010. They've got a date at Virginia to open the season. They've also got some interesting dates here with Texas, Utah State, of course, their traditional rivals. Also Boise State, Wisconsin, and Notre Dame. And, of course, the Cougars went to South Bend this year and took the Irish down to the end at 17-14. For San Diego State, they leave the Mountain West Conference and go to the Big East. At least that's the commitment right now. So they've got a Big East schedule, but out of conference, they've stacked it up really with some heavyweights. Ohio State and Oregon State comes to San Diego to take on the Aztecs. Would love to hear what you have to say about BYU and San Diego State in the Poinsettia Bowl or beyond. Got to hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.